My name is Scott Kildall, and I'm here at Xenoform Labs in San Francisco.
This is Michael Ang. I'm at Mangtronics in Berlin.
Unnatural language is an audio sculptural installation which consists of any number of what we call data pods. And each data pod is placed at a different location throughout a physical environment, such as the jungle or an urban setting. And each one of the data pods consists of one sensor that senses some sort of environmental thing and a small little chip that will synthesize sound dynamically based on that sensor data.
We don't actually know exactly what sounds are going to be produced when we put the data pods into the environment. Because they're acting off what's actually happening at the moment, it's a kind of open-ended exploration of the environment, and it creates a new way for people to experience what's happening there.
Our first installation of Unnatural language was in Panama, near the Panama Canal at the Dynacon conference back last summer in 2019. And for this, we deployed two different types of data pods. One was detecting water quality in the Chagres River, which feeds the Panama Canal, and the other was detecting plant activity of plants that were in the marshy area of that Lake Chagres River. And so we deployed these by kayak and created this mobile installation of these flotillas of data pods. One of the data pods corresponding to the water had 4 different sculptures made of garbage that we found on the Chagres River. The plant ones consisted of bamboo and plastic containers that housed the data pods. And so we sort of tie these up to the plants or different, kind of anchor them throughout the whole space. And as you steered your kayak or canoe through there, you could hear this crazy kind of mixed layer of activity of the data pods making noise. The idea is that they can go into any environment and will be battery operated and durable and reliable using low power, and each one can last for over 24 hours on its own. So what it does is it makes it so that this installation can be deployed easily in a variety of situations.
It's important to us that the technology actually works reliably so that we can actually go into a new place and start to improvise. We can start to be inspired by what we see there, and it brings us a new kind of sensitivity to the environment that we can then share with other people through the sonification that the data pods produce.
In Bangkok, what I did was I worked with the local sounds that are emitted in the Bangkok environment and made some new sensors, such as a compost sensor, which detects compost activity as soil is being broken up, which is a combination of pH, temperature, and soil moisture. And that changes over the course of a number of weeks as opposed to minutes or hours. So what you just heard was several samples that I did at the Na Cafe at Bangkok 1899 during this residency period in Bangkok. So you hear the chopping of knives, you can hear some conversations in Thai, you can hear the various radio programs that were being played, so it was a mix of English and Thai radio, and the food preparation process. And so all these were mixed in a series of layers. So imagine you have 5 or 6 different sound samples, and the sound samples are modulated in various ways according to the data in the compost. And so you get this dynamic, ever-changing, repetitive sound mixture from just that compost sensor. And that's just one of the sensors and one of the data pods. So once again, imagine that you have 6 or 7 or 8 of these in a space, and you can walk around over the course of maybe 100 square meters and hear these at various locations. So at any single point, you can hear maybe 2 or 3 of the data pods making noise, but not all of them. And so what that does is that invites the viewer to go and look at the different data pods and find them. And when they find the data pods, they not only can hear him, but they're rewarded with a visual sculptural element because these are physical sensors in a physical environment.
One of the great things about working with the data pods is that we can take them to a new location and be able to improvise and be inspired by what we're seeing, be curious about what's happening there, and then use the data pods to kind of bring out some of that activity into a different way to be experienced. So for example, at the Digital Naturalism Conference in Panama, I was super excited to see the leafcutter ants carrying their little chunks of leaves that they had harvested from the top of the canopy, because they're an extremely important creature for that ecosystem there. And so we got a bit inspired to see, like, how could we sort of bring out the voraciousness of this activity? And I decided that maybe we could even just sort of channel our own feeling of being a leafcutter ant, a bit of an anthropomorphization, but we actually took knives, put them in our mouths, and used them to saw up large leaves that we had collected from the area. And that sound was then embedded into the data pods. And in this video, as you can see, as each leafcutter ant comes by, the leaf that they're carrying is blocking the beam of a laser, which causes the data pod to emit some of the sounds that we had created, or we had created in response to what we were actually seeing there. And as the activity of leafcutter ants increases, as more and more of the leaves block the beam, then the frequency of the sounds, the kind of intensity of the sounds goes up. So it becomes a new way to experience what's going on there, which is a direct interplay between the technology that we've created, the sensors which are now sensitive specifically to that environment, and then our kind of artistic input in terms of the sounds which are created as well.
So one of the things that compels us about this project is sensing aspects of the environment that you might not normally sense. So people don't normally think of plants or water quality or leafcutter ants or compost as having some sort of sense data that we can express or hear or see. And so by expressing this, we're giving this sort of idea of an ecospheric intelligence. This idea that there's an entire set of things happening in the environment that we might not normally think of. And that has its own way of thinking and its own way of reacting. And there's interplay between these different elements, that the plants and the health of the plants affect the leafcutter ants and vice versa. That the water quality, of course, affects the plants. That all these elements of the environment are interrelated. And together that produces a sort of ecospheric intelligence.
We see that technology is increasingly becoming part of the ecosystem. It's increasingly having effects. And the data pods are our sort of small experiment into directly putting a piece of technology into that ecospheric intelligence as a way of translating between the activities of the environment and the animals into something that humans can perceive in terms of sound. And so when the audience gets into the environment, they get into the spatialized sound experience, we hope that it's sort of bringing all of those pieces together in a way which allows some kind of different interpretation of what's happening there in that specific environment at that specific moment.
Unnatural language is an ever-evolving project. We see this as a place where we can build new sensors, build new types of sounds and synthesized environments, create new soundscapes, and bring it to different places all across the globe.
We're very excited to bring the data pods to different locations, to be inspired by different environments, different kinds of animals, different kinds of activity, and to share that with people so that they can experience the installation, they can experience what the data pods are sensing in a new way.